Morning, everyone. We'll get started in about 3 or 4 minutes. Just waiting for a few more people to join, and then we'll kick off. Just confirm that you can see the screen with the demo active and that you can hear me. If you can just type in the text box, that'll be great. Thanks. Okay, guys. Thanks very much for joining. I know it's EMP 501 and IT12 deadlines. Hopefully, all of you have completed all of that, and there's absolutely no pressure on you for the rest of the day, which is good. But we're not going to take up a lot of your time this morning. The purpose of this session is just to demonstrate a bit of the functionality of Zero Practice Manager. I hope you can all hear and see the screen. I have shared everything, so we should all be good. Just wanted to make sure of that because the last webinar we hosted, I spoke for about 15 minutes and I had forgotten to press the share screen button, which was a bit silly on my part. But we have got confirmation that you can hear and see everything. So we'll jump straight into it. And I'm going to go through 3 or 4 main sections of what we call Practice Manager. And for those of you that I've met before, you will know that a lot of the accountants that we go and meet with, one of the first things we ask them is sort of how do they manage their jobs? How do they manage their responsibilities? And generally, most firms have got pretty good systems when it comes to timesheets and secretarial and tax return management. But in terms of managing jobs and workflows, a lot of them are still quite surprisingly using things like Excel. And Excel's great and it has its functions, but the problem with Excel is that it's static. It's not live, so it doesn't feed information continuously, and it's not very flexible when it comes to sort of reporting. And there are some great, cloud-based software as a service solutions out there to help accountants with the management of their jobs. So what I'm going to showcase today is just a very high-level introductory version, which I think will take us about an hour, and I'm happy to go into more detail after that. But we will have more detailed training on these products, at a later stage. This is more of an exploratory session to show you sort of what's possible. So on your screen that you can see now, what we call Practice Manager, and this is the version of Practice Manager that we give generally for free to a lot of our growing partners. There is a price attached if you're not a growing partner, but if you're a growing partner, we have these tools such as Practice Manager and Work Papers, which are digital solutions for doing things, online using software as a service, as opposed to, manual tools like Excel. So I'm going to break it down into 5 categories. We're going to cover clients, jobs, reports, leads, and then the 3 sort of ways that you can set up software like this. One of the problems is people who move from Excel or manual-based systems, when they adopt technology, sometimes they just go into too much detail and the software ends up running their lives. So, there are 3 ways that you can implement this type of software, and I'll share that with you right at the end. As to what some of these best practices are when it comes to implementing software like this. Ironically, one of the biggest challenges for a lot of accounting firms is that they actually don't have manuals or processes on how to do things. So when they adopt technology like this, they've got no systems or processes that they can copy and paste onto the software. And then they come to the software sort of cold or blind. And they, for example, would say, okay, I'll need to record all of my IT12s and all of my RP6 returns. But the problem is they don't actually have written down anywhere what those steps or those best practices are. And then they try and reinvent them, or not reinvent it, they try and invent them at the time of using the software, which is very challenging. And then you get people who are micromanagers, and then they will add too much detail to the software, and it just makes the software very cumbersome and very difficult to use. So we will share with you right at the end of the session 3 ways that you can set the software up from a very simple, low intensity method to a very high intensity method. So let's kick off then, and I'm going to start off with clients. And managing a client's database, one of the constant frustrations we hear is that accountants have got like 4 or 5 different databases for their clients. They'll have something for their accounting, they'll have something for the secretarial, something for the tax, something for the financials, and it's very difficult syncing a lot of this data. And one of the cool things about Practice Manager, as I jump into clients, and I've clicked on the clients tab, is you can import and export data into Practice Manager just like you would with Xero. So Practice Manager has an open API as well. So what that means is that you can import data into Practice Manager manually using things like a CSV file, but you can also use an API. So you can connect Practice Manager to other products and you can sync it. We are, without giving too much away, we are working on looking at how we can sync Practice Manager with tax software. So, for those of you that use tax submission software, we are looking at how we can better sync a tool like Practice Manager with tax submission software. And that's underway at the moment. So hopefully we'll have some news for some of you early next year on that. But if we have a look at the clients, Practice Manager gives you the ability to sort all of your clients into groups and categories and get a really good report on what clients you have in the business. If you are using another piece of software to manage your clients, and some accountants aren't using anything, and they're using maybe like Outlook or their Gmail address, here we have a full client list. I can search for all of my clients by just typing in a name on the right-hand corner, and then the clients that meet that criteria will pop up on my list. In terms of the client fields, if I click on something like Adler Imports over here, once I've opened up my client, you can see the level of detail that's available per client. So here's my client. I can now edit this client. And if I edit the client, I can choose things like his business structure, the client type, which partner looks after that client, who is the manager who looks after that client. I can upload a logo, all my standard, obviously, contact detail information, tax and billing information. What's pretty cool over here under billing is that I can add custom rates for my client. So if this client, for example, whenever I do his, let's see over here, it was pay as you earn. I think if I choose pay as you earn, I can add that client and I can say, add a custom rate for that client. So my standard rate when I do pay as you earn is 300 Rand an hour. For this client, I'm going to charge 500 Rand an hour because he's a very difficult client and he never gives me the information that I want. So I'm charging him a premium for servicing him. I can also have custom fields, and you can add as many of these as you want. So I can add things like my CRPC return date, my COID number, EMP numbers, any other custom fields you want. These, I'm not going to show you now in this session how to put this in, but essentially you can go into the settings tab and add as many custom fields as what you want. You don't need to add things like birthdays and that sort of thing because those fields are all available, but I can add custom tax fields or anomalies as I want to for my customer. And once I've got his information, I can save all of his details. And again, this information can be imported via an API or imported manually using stuff like CSV if you've got an existing database. So once I look at my contact here, I can have a logo for him. I have all of his details summarized below that I've just showed you that I can enter. I can click on another tab for leads, and it will show me all the leads that I have for that client. So what sales opportunities do I have for that client? Do I have any quotes for that client? What jobs am I busy with for that client at the moment? Any active jobs, any archive jobs? I can check all the invoices that I'm issuing to that client. I can make notes for the client. So I can make a custom note and I can say something like complexity. And I can make a typical note about that client so that all the staff members can see that I've made a note about this client on this date. I can also see all the invoices that I've issued for that client and any archived invoices at the same time, and I can attach documents for that client. So this is all under my clients tab. There's a whole bunch of content I can attach. For example, here, if I wanted to, I could attach like a company incorporation document or a resolution. You are also able to link, by the way, things like, I think it's Google Drive and Box and Dropbox to Practice Manager. So if you're using a cloud-based storage system, you can link a lot of those documents to something like Zero Practice Manager. So the Clients tab allows us to have all our client information on one page, and it's pretty comprehensive. And then I can also segment my clients. So I can have different groups of clients. So here's all my clients. And on the right over here, I have a group of clients. Here's my Adler group. I can click on the Adler group and all the clients in the Adler group will pop up. And you will see here that I then have those same tabs, but just for this group. So now I can see all the leads for this group. I can see all the quotes for this group. I can see all the jobs that are applicable for this group. And I can see all the invoices that are applicable for this group. And of course, at the top here, I've got all the awaiting payment invoices, overdue, and the WIP that's applicable for that group. So really nice to get quite a segmented report on what's going on for that particular client set. Also, I can build my own filters. So with the clients, here are the filters that are standard. So I've got a prospects only, archived, starred. There's my filter. I can build another filter and I can say my 2019 target clients filter. And I can add a condition and I can say all the clients that are managed by a particular partner or in a particular state. And I can add that. I can say all clients that are not in prospect state, please preview that report. And then it will give me all of those reports, and then I have a new filter that I've just built for those clients. So this really helps to segment your client database, understand where your opportunities are, where your sales are, and see what customers you have in the business, what they're a part of and what they're not a part of. What I also enjoy quite a lot is if you have a look here under the Clients tab, one of the cool things is down on the right-hand side over here, you've got all your contact information. So you've got all your contact information down the side over here, but then also at the bottom of the screen, you have the group, you can allocate them to the groups, but you also have relationships over here. So I can add a relationship. And what I can do with that relationship is I can say that this person, for for example, is a director of another company, a partner of another company, and I can add more relationships. I can say that he is a shareholder of another client. He's a shareholder of Bob's Building Supplies, and he has got 80 shares, and it started on this particular date, and I can save that interest. I can run reports on every single text field that you see on the screen at the moment. So really important, to understand that if you do have clients who have multiple shareholdings and that sort of thing, really easy to understand where your clients are and what they are and are not a part of. And be able to search for these clients is really simple. So if I've got my entire client database summarized as you see it over here, yes, I can search using the search button over here, but just on the top right hand side, you can also just type in any name and it gives you an automatic search screen of all of those people. So without leaving the screen, so let's say, for example, I was busy with a job. Now I'm on my job screen. I can still go into this search button. I can type in the surname that I'm looking for. It gives me all people in my database with that surname. I can then say, oh yes, I'm looking for this person over here. I click on it. I still haven't left the screen. I can see all the jobs. I can see the jobs in more detail. I can go back. I can enter some time if I had to, and I'm never leaving the screen that I'm busy with. So everything is accessible generally from this top right-hand part of the screen here, which makes it quite easy to manage. So that's the client's sort of repository or database. And there's a bunch of information you can add, as I've said, a whole lot of custom fields. So there's never a case of not being able to add something unique, things like birthdays and anniversaries, and being able to export this data. You can easily sync this data with something like a survey tool or an email newsletter or that sort of thing, again, because it has an API. So getting the data in and out is pretty straightforward. So this is the client's directory inside of Practice Manager. If you're using Xero, then this syncs with Xero. So any changes made in here will be made in Xero. Any changes made in Xero will be made back here again. So a really great way to keep a list of who your clients are. And again, the reports, which I'll show you a little bit later, are very extensive by being able to see, like this company over here, for example, on the reports, I could run something to say, show me what group they're a part of, what relationship are they a part of, what's their VAT number, what's their company number. It really gives you a whole bunch of information to work with. So that's the clients. What I'd like to jump to now after the clients is to have a look at the jobs, because obviously every client has a job. That's why we engage with them, because we want to work with them. So on the top over here on the right-hand side is another tab called Jobs. And if I click on Jobs, it gives me a summary of every single job that I'm busy with in my practice. So here is the job number. There is the client's name, the type of job, the status, the start date, and the due date of the job. So a nice little summary here of all the jobs. These are all the jobs that I'm busy with in the practice. But then I also have another tab that shows me all the ad hoc jobs. So jobs that are not regular, they are just once-off jobs. I can also see all of my jobs that have been assigned just to me, jobs that I'm busy managing. Okay, so these are my jobs that I'm busy with. Here's my jobs that I'm busy managing. So a nice little summary for every staff member. Here's a summary of those same jobs, but who it's managed by. So these are jobs that have been unallocated. There's no one managing those jobs. These are the jobs managed by Ashley. These are the jobs managed by me. So every single staff member, you can see which jobs will be managed by which person. I also have a summary of important dates. So what jobs are overdue based on their dates? What important dates are busy coming up? So a nice little schedule of what's coming down the pipeline. I can also see a staff allocation of jobs. So here's all my staff on the side and how much time is being allocated to work on jobs in the coming months. So if you keep timesheets, and it's really important for scheduling, this is a great way to see what is the time allocation coming up over the next week or month for jobs that are taking place. I've also got the search tab, which is not really too useful over here. I think that it does have more advanced search options. So I can search for a whole bunch of information based on these criteria. If I've got a whole bunch of jobs, I can have a look at my archive jobs. So any jobs that have been finished or completed. And then most importantly, probably one of the most important features in Practice Manager is the recurring jobs. So you don't want to every single month be creating a VAT job. You don't want to every single month be creating a job for a EMP 201, or every 12 months creating a job for a CRPC return. So what secretarial people or administrative people generally do in a practice with Practice Manager is they will, on receipt of the engagement letter, they will create a recurring job. So they will say every month, starting on the 1st of November and ending, if I've got a contract with these people for 2 years or 3 years, ending in 2021, for this client and this contact, I want you to please prepare a VAT return. And on that VAT return, I want it to last for a period of 4 weeks. I want it to be in progress. The budget is going to be 5,000 Rand. The partner will be this person, the manager will be this person, and the staff members working on it will be that person and that person. And now I can save that job. What will now happen is every single 12 months, 1 month, 2 months, these jobs will automatically pop up and go to the allocated staff member. So I never have to remember of what jobs I'm busy with. If you create the recurring job, the moment the client engagement letter is signed or the jobs become your responsibility, it is impossible to forget these jobs because they will always be created and they will always be assigned to a staff member. If staff members leave, you can bulk remove a staff member and replace them with someone else. But the good thing here is that, for example, with this RT12 return, every single year an RT12 will pop up in May 2019 for this particular company. So obviously you have certain responsibilities every year. So you might have like 12 EMP 201s, you might have 2 RP6s, 1 RT14, 1 AFS, and so on. And if your secretarial or administrative person creates the recurring jobs under this tab, no one will ever forget anything. It's absolutely impossible to forget any of the jobs that are the responsibility of the firm, because these recurring jobs will not stop until you tell them to stop. So it's really important to understand that the recurring jobs are a way of ensuring, if the lead is one, that all those jobs are handled the way that they are supposed to be handled. So just coming back then, I've been through all of these little tabs at the top so you can see the different spreading of the jobs. But let's have a look. If we click into a job, what detail do we have on a job? So if I click into the job number, now I can see on my information tab, there's a whole bunch of information here for the job as well as for the schedule of the job. I've got a job number, I've got a client, the job that I'm busy with, an order number if I want that, a description if I want it, a budget if I want it, a state and a category. I've got a schedule of when it's going to start, when it's going to end, what the priorities are, and which staff members are all working on this job. Now, just important to note here, every single piece of text that you see on your screen, you can use in a report. So any text you see here is available in a report. So you can custom build any criteria, any segmentation that you want, and that will all be available on a report for you. So really powerful. You could, for example, say, show me every single test client job that has the word new client setup that is in the category of internal and that starts on the 1st of January 2017. So I can slice and dice this data anywhere I want and build the report for myself. So this job that I'm busy with at the top here, job number 104, has this information tab and a schedule of everything that applies to that job. If I scroll down, I also have the ability to add some milestones to my schedule. So for example, the job may run from 1 January 2017 and it may finish in 28 February 2017, but by the 27th of February, I need to have completed a particular stage. So this is not, you wouldn't use this for a short job, like a week or a month, but if the job runs over a period of a year, then generally these milestones would be placed at every sort of 3 weeks or 4 weeks or 2 months to see, okay, over the 12-month life of the job, every 3 weeks we should have a milestone to see, okay, we should have done at least this or that. And again, all of that comes up on your reports. Further down on the job, I now have tasks that are associated with my job. So what do I need to do? I need to do a new client setup, but what does that entail? If I scroll down, now I can say, well, it entails having to generate a letter of engagement, generate an introduction letter, create a folder, when the signed letter of engagement is received, file it online, and you can add all of these steps here. And what the staff members end up doing is coming down and ticking off every one of these blocks. So every time I've done something, I need to tick the block and say, I've done it, I've done it, I've done it. And this now is quite important to note. This is where the micromanagers or the people that they love control make this list so long that it becomes almost impossible to complete, because people are having to come in here and tick off every single little step. The best advice you can take when implementing a system like this or any job management system is do not add so much detail, because staff and team members are going to grow very tired. It's great for reporting if you actually look at it, but the point is you grow very tired of coming in here and ticking off every single one of these little ticks. It becomes a real pain. So the best way to implement software like this is literally under every task, just have one thing, only one line. And then eventually where you see the weaknesses in your system or in your business or in your process, then you can add additional lines that deal with those weaknesses to ensure that there are controls in place. The biggest mistake people make with a tool like Practice Manager is they come in here and they build a list like this, and this is way too long. There's no ways any staff member is going to come in every day and be so excited about coming to tick off all these blocks. It's just not going to work. And then half the time, the irony is that the manager or the partner never runs the reports anyway to check this stuff. So it's just a massive waste of time. But you can add one task, and then we call these over here to-dos. So that under the task, I have a to-do. Then I have another task, and then more to-dos, and another task. So you break down every job. So this entire job over here is broken down into a task, and the task is broken down into to-dos. So that really helps you to get really granular to decide what are the steps. And everybody works this differently. It really depends on the firm. You know, some people will have, for example, a VAT 201 job. And the VAT 201 job will recur every 2 months. Other people will have a client job that lasts for a year, for 12 months. And under every job, they will have a task that says they'll have 12 EMP 201 tasks, and they will then have 2 RP6 tasks. So some people choose to have the tasks represent their responsibilities. Other people choose to have the job represent their responsibilities. I'll show you now, but I think my personal view is that it's perhaps better to have a job represent every statutory obligation. So a job would be a thing like a VAT 201, and the tasks would then be the things that you need to get the VAT 201 completed. And then you'd have a job for a CRPC return and a job for an EMP 201 return, because often there's different departments, different people, and it just makes the reporting a bit easier. Also, once you've got this job set up, all this information you're seeing here, you might think, well, Flip, that's a bit of work to get all this content created for every single one of my jobs. The reality is you can build a template. So this stuff automatically populates. So whenever I create a new job for a client setup, I do not need to go and recreate all of these metrics. I do not need to create the milestones again. I do not need to create all this wording you see over here under client setup again. All of this is automatically populated. There's a standard template that you build. So every time that you are doing a job, like an IT12, all of this stuff over here is automatically populated for you, which saves a huge amount of time when you're creating jobs. If we scroll up to the top though, what else do we have on the job? So on the job, besides all the information that I've just shown you, we also have a timesheet. So I can click on the timesheet and I can click on my date and I can say, select the staff member, select the task that I'm busy with. How many hours did I record? I can say 7. I can make a note on the time and I can save my time against that job. There is a quicker way of doing that, because obviously you don't want to be logging into the job every time to record your time. On the right-hand side, there's a little timer. If I click on the timer, a little window pops up, and I can say, please add some time. I can either type in the time manually. I can say 12 hours, or I can say, please start my timer. I can go out. I can do some other work. I can come back. My timer is still busy running. Then I can say, stop the timer. It will tell me what am I working on. I can look for the job that I was working on. Let's say I was working on this one. What task were you busy with while you were working on that job? I was busy with this task. Is it billable? No, it's not billable. Let me add a note. I was fixing staff errors, so it's not billable, and I will save my time. I have now just captured the time directly onto a job like this on this tab. So it will automatically appear on this tab. So my options are, when I record time, if you do record time, is I can either go into my job, open up the timesheet on the job, which is a little bit cumbersome because you don't want to go into jobs every time to record time. And I can manually add my time here and it keeps a record at the bottom. Or doesn't matter where I am in Practice Manager, I just click on the clock, I add some time, I tell them what I'm busy working on, what task I was busy doing, whether it's billable or not. I start my timer, I come back, I stop my timer, and it saves all the time against that particular job. So really easy from the top right-hand side over here. By just clicking on the timer, you can access all your time and record everything directly against the job. So let me jump back into that job again. So that's the timesheet tab. And the timesheet tab, again, you can manually do it here, but I would recommend this clock at the top is just a massive way to save time. You also have a tab for notes. So if I want to make a note against this job, I can say, let's just say this is a compilation note. And I can make a commentary here about this, and I can save it. And then every staff member, remember, this is a cloud product, so any staff member can log in and you can make notes and you can see all the commentary at the bottom here. Again, I can run reports on every single one of these notes. So I can say, show me all my clients and all my jobs that have got a compilation note that was made by Colin Timmis during the month of October 2018, and all the notes will pop up. So a really good way, if you've got a standard protocol on what type of notes do you make. So what do you call your notes? What is allowed to be made against a client? If there is a standard and a reference, then you can put that on your notes. Also important to note, your emails, all the emails you send to your clients will appear under the notes tab for the job. So I'm not going to show you how to do that now, but there is a way to set it up so that if I copy my practice management system on every email and I use the job in the subject line, all my emails, whether I send them or whether my staff send them, all those emails will be summarized here underneath the notes tab of the job. So that is just fantastic, because for liability protection, for notifying clients, for knowing what staff have or haven't sent, all the email correspondence pops up under this note history over here on that particular job. And that's a really useful way of knowing who has spoken to who and what was said and when was it said. You're not having to scratch through people's inboxes if they leave the firm to try and find emails and correspondence. And you're definitely not printing stuff out and putting it in files, because everything is attached to the jobs. So Notes has manual notes capability, but also the ability to link your emails. So every time I email the client on a particular job, the emails are linked to the jobs, which is pretty good. Documents, as I said earlier, you can link document management tools automatically to sync with Practice Manager. Otherwise, you just choose a file. If you wanted to, maybe there's a schedule or a picture or a contract. You can attach those documents again to the job, which is really great if you're, getting like a loan confirmation schedule or an amortization schedule or some sort of correspondence from SARS that you want to link up. You can attach all your documents. You can attach costs as well. So if you incur costs on behalf of the client, so maybe you buy Maybe you're on an audit or a visit to a client and there's food and accommodation costs that are reimbursable, or maybe there's printing costs or something. You can attach those costs onto the job as well. And then lastly, you have a financial tab. So I'm just going to jump to another job here just to show you some entries. I think there's one over here. Let's just see, here we go. So on my financial tab, I'm able to set up my under my settings about how I bill this client. So I can finalize his accounts, I can do a meeting, and it shows me what billing I can issue this client. And when I'm ready, I can do a progress invoice, and I can say, on this job, bill the actual time and costs that have been incurred. Or I can say, bill the estimated time and costs. Or I can say, bill him a progress amount or a deposit. So he must give us R2 because we've completed 70% of the work, and I'm going to say next, and I have now calculated a price, and I've said I'm going to bill him that fee, I'm going to approve it, and the result is that on my estimated billings I have a prepayment that the guy has made of a certain value. Now this can get really complicated. I'm going to get into this right at the end when I spoke about the 3 ways you can set up the software. This is an example of how you can actually sync Practice Manager with Xero. And if you've got fixed pricing for your clients, what actually happens is if I've got a fixed bill coming out of Xero, like a fixed recurring monthly amount, that amount gets posted into here and links to the job and creates like a negative WIP amount. So if you're not billing on hours, but you just keep your hours to check profitability, and you're doing fixed pricing, what you can actually do is bill the client out of a product like Xero, have the fixed invoice value going out, but then create a negative WIP amount from that invoice to see whether you're over or under. And you can then choose to bill him the additional amounts. So this is one of the more complicated ways of setting it up. It really depends on how much detail the firm wants to see, but you have that option, the option of doing fixed pricing and then creating a negative value and doing overs or unders and saying, okay, well, on this job, it's a fixed price of 5,000, but it looks like we're spending 15,000 every month, so we need to bill him an extra 10,000. All of that's tracked from within the job. So a huge amount of detail. We're just looking at the job now. A huge amount of detail that you can see here that's available on the job, and detail that we can add where staff come in and tick. And everything that I'm ticking here can be on a report. So I can say, show me all of the reconcile bank account tasks across the whole company that haven't been ticked. Or I can say, show me all of the VAT reconciliation to-dos that have been ticked. So you can really, again, if you control how much detail is in here, and you see what has and what hasn't been done, everything that is ticked or not ticked can be run on a report globally for the whole practice. So a whole lot of detail that you can add to the actual job. And then all of these tabs are available to go in and analyze and see, well, what notes I met with the client, I spoke with the client, and what sort of changes have been made for those jobs. Just back to the job management screen again. This is where I would create a manual job if I wanted to, but again, if your secretarial or administrative person or onboarding person is good, then they would create all the obligations before the file is even given to the staff member who's working on it. Just as an aside, if you use a tool like Practice Ignition actually plugs, let me just see if I can log in here quickly and I can actually show you. Practice Ignition actually plugs into Practice Manager. And what Practice Ignition is, let me just make sure you guys can see all of this. Yeah, there we go. So Practice Ignition actually enables you to streamline your onboarding process with your customers. So you would send your proposals to your customers out of Practice Ignition. So you would send them their proposal from this tool, and they could accept the contract online. And once a contract is accepted, it automatically creates all the jobs that are on the proposal. So instead of having a staff member manually create the jobs, if you've got huge volumes, then and you use Practice Ignition, all these jobs will be automatically created. Just again, bear in mind that all these things, things like Practice Ignition cost money, so it's got to make sense for you, and you got to make sure it's set up all correctly. So those are the jobs, and there's a huge amount of detail you can add. There are templates for all the jobs, so you build the templates out based on what you want. So, for example, if I went into this VAT return for April, I do not have to recreate all of this information you see here. So everything under VAT return process and all of these ticks over here, I do not need to recreate that. Even the period and the priority and the staff members that it's allocated to, and all of this wording over here. If you build the templates per job, it automatically is available to apply those templates. And I can edit these jobs as I want to. And once I've created it, I can apply another template. So here's an additional template. I can click on it, and I can say, please add my IT12 template, and I save it. And I've now then added my IT12 template to this report. So not to this report, to this job. So you're never having to recreate a lot of that information. Okay. So we've covered the clients over here and how we can segment and prepare our clients and get all of our reports. All of our clients have jobs. So if I go back into my one client, I can see a summary of all of the jobs for that client. I can click on that client. There are the jobs just for that client. I can open up that job, and now I'm in my job screen, what I've just shown you, which is all the summary information. But I don't have to use the timesheets here. I can use the timesheets in the top corner to record my time, but I can go down and have a look at all the data in here. So what we're going to jump to now is I'm going to show you the reporting, because all of this data, there's a whole bunch of data here. So what do we have in terms of reporting? So reporting is probably, in my opinion, the most powerful part of Practice Manager. There are a couple of standard reports here. So you can come in here, and these are all here when you use the product. We haven't built any of these. So I can click on, for example, a WIP control report, and I can click on it, and it will give me, I don't know how much data is here, but let's just see what it gives us. It will give me a standard report. So there is my WIP control report, time billed, time written off, opening balance, disbursements, any interim fees that have been raised, and a summary. So that's a nice little WIP report. Let's see what else there is. There's a KPI dashboard as well. Click on my KPI dashboard. There's my KPI dashboard. So I've got WIP days, debtor days, lockup days, average hourly rates, write-offs, write-downs, revenue per director, revenue per fee earner, average revenue per client, total revenue. So you can see, there's a great deal of reports here. I want to show you one more, that client time detail report. Let's see what that is. Let's go back to there, and let's do it for all of these clients. I can select which clients I want, and let's run that report. So all of these are standard reports that we give you. There's the client, there's all the jobs and the information, and there's a summary of all of their time and their rates. So huge amount of detail. All of it can be exported, emailed, and played with. So some really cool stuff. And then you also have a standard WIP report. If I go to my work in progress, I can see all of my WIP. Not for my filter, show me the work in progress filter. So there's my total time, my disbursements, my interims, my WIP, my estimated billings. Show me my total WIP. And then I can choose to say, take all of these invoices and let's invoice all of that work out. So there's a huge amount of reporting that's available. But if you want something custom, you can go to the report builder. And the report builder essentially allows you to take, and I'm just going to give you a demonstration of how granular it can get. You can build any report you want on any field inside of Practice Manager. So if I say create a new report, and I say create a table report, and it might seem a little complicated when I do it now, but it's really not that involved. So I will say, let's create a client and a contact. So these are all the types of reports that I can build. So whenever I select one of these, it gives me different options. So I'm going to select, let's just say, client and a contact report. And now it gives me the option to build it. So I will say that this is Collins, client and contact reports. I can select my fields. I want to see who is the account manager. I want to see what is the company number. So have a look at all of these fields here. You see all these are all the fields, and whether you've created a custom field, like there's my COID number, my EMP, my phone, my SDL number, my CIPC annual return. So there are the standard fields that XPM comes with, but every custom field you create is in here as well. And I can add as many of these fields as what I want. So I can build out as many fields, show me who the job manager is, show me who the client is. And then I can say, okay, those are the fields that I want in the report, but what is the criteria? So what is the search criteria you want in your report? Well, the search criteria I want is I want every single client, let's choose from a criteria. So let's say every single client who has a business structure that includes companies. And then I want you to be able to, I want the following people to be able to view this report. So I can limit who can see this report. The user rights in Practice Manager are extremely powerful. So I can say who I want to see the report. Now let me preview my report. Okay, there's my report that's being previewed. And then I can say, okay, well, I still want to edit that report a bit. So let's just go back. And then I can say things like, all of these fields, let's move this field to the top. So let's sort it by client, and please group all of my rows. What does that look like? So now I've grouped it by Adler and by all of my suppliers. The data here is not great, so it's not looking, let's see if I can add a few more fields here. Let's add the job manager. Let's add the postal address. Let's add the client status. Let's get rid of that one. And I can sort them by status. So let's rerun that. And I can rerun my report. So now I've got all my clients sorted by status and all of their details. So you get the feel of what's sort of available. And when I'm happy with this report, I can save this report and I can continue editing it, or I can take this report and I can save it. Why is it doing that now? I can save this report. Screen's jumping. I can save it as a template. And then I have a template report that's available under all of my reports over here. So here's other reports that I've built. There's a job report. And I can preview this job report. And there's all the jobs that I have got no partner allocated to their account. Here's all the jobs. Again, this is probably not a very good report to show because this is standard available under the jobs. You know, when I was going through the jobs earlier, I showed you that there were standard reports available here. So I've just built what Practice Manager essentially already has. But I'm just showing the flexibility. And of course, there's hyperlinks in all of this stuff. So if I go to this job and I click on the hyperlink, it drills me down into the actual job. And if I click on the name, it drills me down into the actual contact. So everything is still hyperlinked inside of the reports, which allows me to drill down into a lot more detail. So the reporting side, extremely powerful. You know, a whole lot of information that you can print out. And what a lot of people do is to build exception reports. So they won't say, build me a report that shows me all of my VAT 201s that are due this month. They will just say, show me all of the VAT 201s that have not been completed. And then it's a staff member's responsibility to make sure they've completed all of the tasks. And if it pops up on the report, then it means that it hasn't been done. Therefore, that's an exception and it needs to be dealt with. So really powerful from a reporting point of view to build these reports in Practice Manager. Then the fourth and second last thing that I want to show you is leads. You are able in Practice Manager to connect your website to Practice Manager so that all of the leads that you get flow into Practice Manager. So this is a leads tab. And what this shows me is all of the leads that I have in the business. So leads by category. So what category is tax, audit, secretarial, advisory, payroll. And I can create new leads every time. So I can manually come here and say, I spoke to this client. I spoke to Mr. Adler and I spoke to David, and he said that there's a new lead proposal, an opportunity to do more tax returns. And the value of that is approximately 5,000 Rand. It will therefore go into my tax category. I will save it, and it goes into this pot where I can come back and make notes. I can attach all of my emails. So again, if I use this email address, All of my emails are attached to this lead. I have a lead process to say, call the lead, do a fact find, issue the proposal, follow up on the proposal. So I've got all these steps to move my leads on a journey, and I can manually do this. And when I win it, I can say I've won the lead, and the lead automatically turns into a job where we now start a new job and we start new client setup, and the setup process starts. So this lead manager, I mean, most accounting firms do not have any lead management solution. You have the ability to do this manually, but you also have the option of linking this to your website. So if people fill in a form on your website, the lead is automatically created inside here, which often is a great way to manage all new leads in a practice. So that's the lead management side. And then just the last thing that I wanted to share with you is perhaps around the setup methods that I spoke about earlier. So the setup methods, 3 that we would recommend that people consider is, number 1, either you use Practice Manager just as a job management system. So you do not worry about the financial aspect of Practice Manager. So this tab over here, under costs and under financial, you're doing your invoicing out of some other tool. Maybe you're using some other product. Maybe you're doing it straight out of Xero, but you don't have the time and the focus to be able to do a full rollout of Practice Manager. If you just use Practice Manager for the jobs, that is the easiest way to manage it. And you keep the jobs simple. So all of these jobs, all of this detail is kept really low key, and you build it out as you start seeing the risks in the business identified. And that's the easiest way of doing it. Don't worry about the cost and the financial side. You're just using it to manage jobs, track a bit of time, record notes and emails, and you're using it as a job management system and a client relationship management system. That is the easiest setup. You can import client data, train staff quite easily, and it doesn't affect, there's no risk sort of when it comes to what are you billing your customers. You can still export these timesheets and you can still compare them to other things, but that is the simplest and the easiest way of doing it. The second sort of slightly more complicated way is to say, well, now we're actually going to use it for jobs, but we're also going to use the costs and the financial side. This requires a little bit more training, a little bit more input, because you then have to go and make sure that all of your custom rates here are correct. That's why it's slightly more complicated, because for every job you do, so if I just jump to my settings, that means you have to set up a rate for every task and for every job that you complete. So under every task here, I have to now go into annual accounts, for example, and I have to set up a base rate and a billable rate. So for every staff member, they have to have their rates inserted. For every task, you have custom client rates for those jobs, custom staff rates. So for example, Colin's rate will be 10% of that amount and his billable rate will be that. So it becomes a little bit more complicated and a little bit more work if you are worrying about the financial side and you're looking at having all of those rates manually inserted. Then it naturally becomes a little bit more work, because this financial tab over here, we're doing all of our invoicing from here. And we're creating invoices, which becomes slightly more complicated. And then the third and probably most complex setup is where you now link this to Xero and you feed across your fixed price invoices. It's not that much additional work, but there is added complexity in that you have to now set up the costs, the financial, and you're pulling across invoices from Xero that create negative WIP amounts. And because those negative WIP amounts are being created, you've got to do overs or unders and write-ups and write-downs. So it's definitely doable, but again, and we have a partner consultant who can come out and help firms with that. But again, for firms that are not, if you've got a very basic, low labor way of managing jobs, you don't want to move from like Excel to trying to do everything all at the same time. So it really is important that in your practice or in your firm, you understand like what is the biggest challenge you want to solve. And for most people, it's just a case of we need to stop forgetting about jobs and we need to have accountability. So we need to make sure that all the emails, all the notes, all the time is recorded correctly against a client. And if we ever have a potential liability claim or we want to be proactive with clients and follow up for missing information, we can simply come into our client list like this. We can run reports based on particular criteria for clients. We can go into our clients. We can see what is applicable for that individual client, or we can go to our reports and we can run a report to say, show us all the clients that have got problems. So for example, we can look at a fee write on or write off report for October. And I can then take some sort of action against those clients based on their errors. So that's a lot easier way of managing the jobs and managing the processes. And of course, you never forget anything. And if you're managing staff, you can just come in and you can see all the emails they've sent to the client are on here. So if they copy this system, all the emails will automatically appear inside the practice management system. So those are the three ways. Just to recap, it is just use Practice Manager as a job management system where you record your jobs and you look at the templates and you get a system and a process going. The second way is if on the jobs you'd start using the costs and the financial side. So you'd put in rates per hour, per staff member, per job. And the third way would be to sync that with some sort of billing software where you're doing negative WIP and those sorts of processes. So there are three ways of having a look at it, and based on how we've seen most accountants managing their jobs and their responsibilities, and when you consider the fact that this software is free, I mean free, it's ridiculous, for growing Xero partners, it really is a massive opportunity to never forget anything. And of course the leads. I mean, the leads tool for me is just fantastic because most firms have got nothing and they've got no process of qualifying their leads to see who's won leads and who's not. It really casts a nice focus on how many leads do we have, what departments are those leads for, what are my leads, what are my staff's leads, and what activities do we still need to do. So do we need to send out letters? Do we need to do proposals? Like, what are the steps? So from that point of view, I think there's a whole lot of stuff in here that people just don't use. There's a weekly timesheet summary per staff member, and I can drill down into the timesheet and see what's been going on. So that's in 1 hour, a very summarized view of Xero Practice Manager. We do have a number of other resources and courses coming up to help with setups. We also have just appointed a partner consultant who will be going out to firms to help them with Practice Manager setup. And then we have a sort of self-implementation model as well. The jury's sort of still out on whether or not self-implementation is a good idea, because if you set this up wrong, it will not work. It really, and that's one of the first thing I mentioned when we started this morning was, you cannot come to the software, look at the software now, start building your systems. You have to have some sort of documented process or system that you've agreed on. Things like, what are your client categories? What are the important segments of your client database? When you complete an IT12, what are the 5 non-negotiable steps when you complete an IT12? If you're using the cost and the financial side, what are your processes to build time? Are you billing time? How are you billing your clients? So understanding those things are really important when you come to a tool like Practice Manager. But when you are in this environment, keeping time is as simple as clicking on this clock over here, adding the little plus sign, starting your timer, finding the job, allocating the time if that's how you roll, saving the time, and then allocating it to the client. If you want to search for anything, little screen at the top, you can literally type in any letter, and any client with that criteria will pop up below. I can click on it while I'm still on the same screen, drop down into my time, see the leads, jobs, the invoices, all from one screen at the top here. So really, really interactive. So that, in a nutshell, is a summary of Xero Practice Manager and the practice management tool that we have not been promoting massively, but which we definitely will be promoting more in 2019, and which we are looking at seeing how can we make it a better experience for some of our partners to get all their data together, to have one source of truth. Because too many accountants, I think, have got 5 different databases trying to manage data between like 3 or 4 different systems and trying to sync it. And as I mentioned, we are underway with a project where we are looking to sync Practice Manager with some tax sort of submission software, because we know some of you do use tax submission tools. So watch this space. There are some options sort of coming down the pipeline. Cool. I'm going to answer a few questions now. There's a little Q&A or a little chat box there. Yolandi, cool. I've got a few questions from you. So how do you determine a growing partner? Yeah, a growing partner is sort of intentionally vague. Because we don't want to define it too clearly. We genuinely want to resource and give, tools to people that are going to use them, and we're just going to help them. And my sort of personal belief is that we should be giving practice managers for free to every single Xero accountant in South Africa. I mean, there's no good practice management solution. And honestly, I remember like back in the day looking for CRM tools for accountants, and there's probably 2 custom or 2 proper cloud-based accounting practice management solutions that are custom for accountants in the world. And the sort of third one is Practice Manager. And I use it for a number of years in practice, and I just found that it's light years ahead of any other practice management solutions. So I would highly recommend it. And in terms of growing partners, anyone who's growing, that's really it. I mean, we obviously rank partners based on whether they're growing or planning to grow. And if a partner's planning to grow and you speak to your account manager and you say, listen, we're planning on growing, and in the next 6 months or the next 4 months or the next 3 months, we think we're going to move 5 clients or 10 clients or 20 or 50 or 100 clients onto Xero, then you'll be classified as a growing partner. So as long as there's movement, I think, Yolanda, I think that's sort of the categorization is there movement? Are you growing? Are you developing? And then we resource you. Then we'll give you stuff. And that's what Practice Manager is there for. We are mindful of, one must remember that Practice Manager is there to manage clients. So if you've only got 10 clients, it's probably no point in you having Practice Manager, because it's going to be more burden. You don't need a practice management solution when you've only got 10 clients. But if you're a bigger firm or you're planning on growing, then it makes sense. Even if you've only got 10 clients now, but you've got 100 like who you still want to convert, then it makes sense for us to give you XPM, because it will serve that purpose. Is there a custom task list for implementation? No. So we were looking at that, and we are still looking at that. Maybe that is something we will do. We do have the ability to build those templates for you. So we know generally, what are the 5 things you have to do when you do an IT 12. So we are looking at that. We might have it available in next year. Not 100% sure, but that's something we can look at. So you can chat to us about that. We can definitely help with that. Just that, it fits in with what your processes are. Can you add mails to clients and jobs? Yes, you can add your emails to all the clients and all the jobs. So whenever you send an email from Office or Google, there's an email address you get. So if you look over here, if you go to business and you go to, goodness, I'm going to forget now, under collaboration, there is an email address over here. So you see this address over here. It says @emailmyjob. So I will say Colin @emailmyjob, or I will say my firm. What some people do is they say SARS, or they say jobs whatever you want. Whatever you do here, any email that is now sent to this address will automatically be attached to the job that it applies to. So yes, all your emails are attached there. And let me tell you, those emails have been attached there, save your bacon a lot of times. If you're looking, especially with things like RP6s, because RP6s, you only get the notification of there being something wrong like a year after you submitted the return. And then the client says, well, you didn't tell me of the amount, or you underestimated or overestimated. And then you try and find the emails and, did you print it out? Where's the file? It's just a fiasco. So for stuff like that, for risk and liability mitigation, it's absolutely crucial that you have jobs with all the emails attached. So we have two options with implementation. We can do it for you. We have a partner consultant who will come out for free and do it for you, or we have a paid option. So we do have another person who does XPM implementations, and they can come to your office and help with training, and they would then charge a fee. Which option we suggest would be based on the firm. Again, so if it's a growing firm, if there's a lot of opportunity, we'll invest in you and we will pay for that. But if you're a smaller firm and you don't see yourself doing much over the next 6 months, then you would have to pay for that yourself. But we would look as far as possible to pay for that implementation for you. So there shouldn't be any costs associated with implementation. Is there a list of stuff we need to get ready before implementation? Yeah, there definitely is. Before implementation, you need things like who are the staff members, what are their email addresses, who are your clients, what is the type of work that you do? Is it the standard sort of IT 12, VAT 201 type work? So there would be a template. There's an implementation, a document that we have. So it's a couple of pages long. And it just helps to make sure that we populate the content with the right information. But one of the first questions that you must always ask yourself when implementing software like this is, what do I want out of the software? So every month when I print a report, what do I want to see? So rather start with the end in mind. Don't just try and populate a whole bunch of data onto XPM. Essentially what we want to do is say, well, every month I want to print a report and I want to see every single even period VAT return that has not been submitted. And 2 months before the deadline, I want to see every single CIPC return that is due. And I want to see those reports for all customers that are in a group called offshore or whatever it may be. So understanding what you want ahead of the time is critically important to knowing how much data we process. Cool. Are there any other questions around that? I see a few more people have joined in the last couple of minutes. I hope there wasn't any confusion around the time. I saw that the reminder did come out and the reminder was set up weirdly. So I hope there wasn't, I think there's 4 or 5 people that have joined now in the last sort of 10 minutes. I hope they weren't aiming at 10 o'clock. But I have recorded this webinar. So what I can do is if you ping me a message afterwards, if you were one of the people who came not late, but if you thought that it was 10 o'clock instead of 9 o'clock, just ping me a mail and I will share the recording with you, which means you've missed sort of nothing. Yeah, reminder was 10 to 12. So sorry, I don't know. Yeah, that's weird. I'm so sorry about that. I don't know why I did that. Sorry, guys. I think what I'll do, Mika, Candy, I will just make sure everyone's got my email address. Let me just stick it in there. There we go. Just ping me a mail and I will share the link with you to the recording. And then you can just watch that first section on the recording. So you haven't lost anything, and you can do that in your own time. Then, or now, I suppose, if you still got if you plan to be on here from 10 o'clock, I'll just share the recording with you now. Then you've got it. Cool. Ilham, sorry, man. Yeah, flip that. I don't know what happened there. You know what it is? I think it's this daylight savings thing. Oh, it must be. So the UK went an hour back on Sunday or Monday morning. I think that's where the problem came in. So we set it up from our UK, and I think the hour time saving kicked in the UK on Monday morning, and I think that's what screwed up the time. So sorry about that. But just ping me a message, please, guys, and I will definitely flick over the recording link to you, and you can watch that. You can watch that then. So, yeah, any other questions for those that were here for the earlier part? I'll stick around for another 10, 15 minutes. Happy to answer any other questions. Maybe I'll just show one other thing before I sort of move on is under the settings tab. And I've really breezed through XPM just to show you the functionality. I mean, the stuff gets like really, really detailed. So under document management, this is what I referred to earlier. You saw on all the jobs, you're able to link, your files. So you can either manually add files, but it is possible as well to link tools like this, and then you can sync your files with the variant folders. Again, a little bit more complicated. So there's not a lot of firms that are using, Dropbox or Box or Google Drive to manage these things. So it's not something that a lot of firms do at the moment, but just that down the line there is the potential to sort of do that. And just to show you the user rights, if you go to staff, it's really granular on what you can assign for user rights. So I click on my name and I scroll down, you see all those fields. Every single screen, I have rights to have full rights, view only, editing, deleting, or printing. So huge amount of custom info. And I can also add custom task rates for myself. So whenever I do annual accounts, my base rate is 100 Rand an hour, but my billable rate is 500. So I have a rate per task that I set up, but I can also come in here and manually add this, which makes it way easier to override rates when I'm doing work for specific people. So that's pretty cool as well. So it just shows you how much detail you can begin to add. A whole bunch of add-ons that are available as well. Didn't want to show too much of that because it just gets like E360. They do fantastic websites. And there's one or two other things like OneSource. They do some cool stuff as well. Spotlight reporting is there. So a whole lot of other apps, Zendesk, Zero Work Papers, that some of you may be familiar with. So a whole lot of settings that you can still change there. Custom fields. So just to show you this, just two more things. Sorry, and then I'll. So if I do a new custom field, I can essentially say, give me a checkbox and make it only applicable to clients, and let's call this ProvTax registered. So are they ProvTax registered? And now I can go to my clients and I can see that I have a field for ProvTax registered. So if I go back to my client list and I click on a client, I should have a little tab here that says ProvTax registered, and it says no. So I just created a custom tab for my client. So again, literally, if you could think it, you could do it. There's a whole bunch of custom fields you can add. And then just the last thing, notifications. Too many people use these notifications. I mean, they're great, but you can notify when someone is assigned to a job, notify the job manager, notify an entire team, notify the audit team, notify when milestones are completed, when tasks are completed. Now, some people come in here and they tick all these boxes. Like, don't ever do that, because all that's going to happen is every time somebody ticks on one of those little tick boxes and the status changes or the job moves, it's going to send you an email. And that might sound fantastic because you know what's going on, but it's a flipping disaster because your email inbox is just going to be filled with all that information. You can also build custom notifications. So I can say, whenever there is a job estimated versus actual time, I mean, like accountants love this one. So I say, please add that. Whenever the estimated versus the actual time is changing, then please notify the partner, or notify the team when the status changes or when the milestones are overdue. So you can notify a whole lot of time stuff here. And I can say, when the job reaches 70% completion, please notify the audit team because they must get ready to do the audits or whatever the case may be. So like really granular. But again, you don't want to be ticking all that stuff because you're going to be getting notifications out of your ear holes, all of those jobs. Okay, cool, guys. So if there's any other questions, I will hang around for another 10 minutes. Please ping me an email if you were one of those sort of looks like 5 or 6 5 people that got the later time. I also got the reminder and was a bit confused, so you're not alone. So apologies for that, but just ping me a mail and I'll definitely share that with you. If you want more information on XPM Practice Manager, please chat to your account manager. If you go to 0U, there are some resources on 0U for Practice Manager, so 1 or 2 short little webinars on there as well. They're like a couple of minutes. It's like 15 minutes or something. So if you go to explore, search all courses, topics, and you went to Practice Manager, there is a self-implementation training course for 3 hours, and here is a 1 hour and 20-minute step-by-step Practice Manager implementation. I also have I have an amazing longer Practice Manager implementation training session. But again, that's the point of this session, was just to showcase what Practice Manager has and what it can do. So if you want more info, please speak to your account manager or have a look at one of these courses, or otherwise, also just go to Zero TV and have a look there at some of the practice management videos that are available. I think there's 1 or 2 inside Zero TV as well. So that's it in a nutshell. Thanks very much. If there's any other questions, I'm going to hang around for another 10 minutes. Just ping me a question on the Q&A. I'm happy to go through or demonstrate any more functionality if any of it was unclear, or if you've got any specific things like can it do this or can it do that, or this is my frustration in my firm. What sort of features are available in XPM that would solve those problems? But I mean, mostly when I talk to guys, the biggest issue is just jobs. Like, it's unbelievable that people want to take all of these jobs over here, paste them onto Excel, and then try and remember them, or like export an e-filing report to see what VAT 201s you've got due. I mean, you can't grow like that, and you can't track everything. So if you don't have anything, I definitely have a look at this. So 10 more minutes, I'll hang around until past. Ping me a quick Q&A if you want. Otherwise, email me and I'll send you the webinar recording. Thanks very much.